said in Matthew 5:19, do and teach God's law. This is God's law number 50, newlyweds, loans, kidnappers, and crimes. Here's God's law number 50 from the law book of God in Deuteronomy 24:5 through 16. First, Deuteronomy 24:5. Newlyweds, quote, a newly married man must not be drafted into the army or be given any other official responsibilities. He must be free to spend 1 year at home bringing happiness to the wife he has married, end quote. This law shows God's great priority for marriage, for husbands to be home, and 1, make a family. Number 2, make a happy wife. But most obviously from this verse, we learn that God is not against having an army to fight to protect the nation. Deuteronomy 24:6 and verse 10 through 15, loan securities. Quote, it is wrong to take a set of millstones or even just the upper millstone as security for a loan, for the owner uses it to make a living. If you lend anything to your neighbor, do not enter his house or pick up the item he is giving as security. You must wait outside while he goes in and brings it out to you. If your neighbor is poor and gives you his cloak as security for a loan, do not keep the cloak overnight. Return the cloak to its owner by sunset so he can stay warm through the night and bless you, and the Lord your God will count you as righteous. Never take advantage of poor and destitute laborers, whether they are fellow Israelites or foreigners living in your towns. You must pay them their wages each day before sunset because they're poor and are counting on it. If you don't, they might cry out to the Lord against you, and it would be counted against you as sin, end quote. The above loan instructions were for loans for poor and destitute people. The Lord talks about being gracious to foreigners as well, but how to voluntarily treat foreigners in Israel, where Israel's civil law was God's law, is quite different than foreigners in a nation with unbiblical socialistic laws via forced taxing of citizens to give foreigners housing, food, medical, and education, etc. Such foreigners may even violate their laws, despise their citizens, and destroy their nation. That's unbiblical and a sure socialistic recipe for rapid nation destruction. Deuteronomy 24:7. Kidnappers. Quote, if someone is caught kidnapping a fellow Israelite and treating or selling them as a slave, the kidnapper must die. You must purge the evil from among you. End quote. Regardless what a kidnapper does with their victim, the punishment is the death sentence. Exodus 21:16 says, quote, anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death, whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession, end quote. To murder someone was to deprive someone of life, and the murder was to always receive the death sentence. To kidnap someone was to also deprive someone the essence of life, and the kidnapper was to always receive the death sentence. Without swift justice and capital punishment for murderers and kidnappers, it does not purge evil from the land, and such evil will increase in the land. Deuteronomy 24:16, individual crime. Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor children to be put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own crime, end quote. Regardless of how bad some parents have been, they are not responsible for any crime their son or daughter commits. They may receive shame for irresponsible parenting, but should never receive any civil punishment for any crime of their son or daughter. Neither should a crime nor a liability of a parent ever be carried over to a son or daughter. Knowing God's law should give every wise legislator knowledge how to legislate, and every wise judge knowledge how to judge, and every wise citizen knowledge what to pray for and promote with their civil leaders. Do not ignore the law of your God. The Lord God said in Hosea 4:6, quote, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priest, my servants. Because you have ignored the law of your God, I also will ignore your children, end quote. The Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:21, but I do not ignore the law of God, end quote. The Apostle James said in James 4:11, quote, but your job is to obey the law, not to judge whether it applies to you, end quote. The Lord God says, for today, Hebrews 10:16. This is the new covenant I will make with my people. I will put my laws in their hearts, and I will write them on their minds.